Hello everyone and God bless you. I have a question for you. Have you ever wondered what the world was like before the first murder? Close your eyes and picture a time when humanity was still innocent, untouched by the stain of bloodshed. The air was cleaner, the colors more vibrant, and the connection between humans and their creator was almost tangible. Now, imagine the moment that perfect world shattered. What could drive a person to commit such an unthinkable act? As you drift off to sleep tonight, we'll explore the shocking truth behind Cain's sin and how it forever changed the course of human history. Before we get going, I wonder if I could ask for one thing. Could you quickly subscribe to our channel, please? This helps us to grow, to reach more people, to spread the word of God and the love of Jesus. Thank you. Okay, now, get comfortable, close your eyes, and let's begin this fascinating story. Chapter 1. The Garden's Fading Memory. Picture a world where the whisper of Eden still lingers in the air. The lush gardens and perfect harmony may be gone, but their memory casts a bittersweet glow over everything. Adam and Eve, now outside the gates of paradise, carry the weight of their choices like a heavy cloak. Every step they take in this new, harsher world reminds them of what they've lost. But life goes on, doesn't it? And with life comes new beginnings. Cain and Abel enter this world, bright-eyed and full of wonder. As they grow, their parents weave tales of a perfect garden, a place where God walked among them and every need was met. Can you imagine the awe in the children's eyes as they hear of talking serpents and trees of knowledge? These stories become the backdrop of their childhood, shaping how they see the world around them. The brothers' curiosity about Eden is insatiable. They pepper their parents with questions. What did the tree of life look like? How did it feel to walk with God? Adam and Eve do their best to paint a picture of paradise, but some things are beyond words. How do you describe perfect harmony to those who've only known a fallen world? As the boys grow older, something strange happens. The memory of Eden begins to blur, like a dream fading in the morning light. Adam and Eve find it harder to recall the exact shade of green in the garden or the precise melody of the birds' songs. It's as if paradise is slipping through their fingers all over again. Meanwhile, the family faces new challenges in this harsher environment. The ground is stubborn, reluctant to yield its fruits without a fight. Adam's brow is often damp with sweat as he coaxes life from the soil. Eve feels the sting of thorns as she gathers berries, a constant reminder of the curse. The changing seasons bring new worries. Will there be enough food to last the winter? Will predators threaten their safety? Cain and Abel grow up watching their parents struggle and adapt. They learn to be resourceful, to find beauty in imperfection. But there's always an undercurrent of longing, a sense that things should be different. Can you feel the weight of that knowledge? The constant awareness that this isn't how it was meant to be? As you rest there, let your mind wander to Adam and Eve's new life. How different it must have been from the paradise they knew. No longer could they simply reach out and pluck fruit from any tree. Now they had to plan, to sow seeds and nurture crops. The earth, once their willing partner, now required coaxing and care to produce food. The relationship between Adam and Eve changed too. In Eden, they were equals, perfectly in tune with each other. Now, in the aftermath of the fall, tension sometimes crept in. Blame and regret could surface in moments of frustration. Yet, their shared experience also bound them together in a new way. They were partners in this strange new adventure, relying on each other more than ever before. And what of their connection to God? It was different now, more distant. No longer could they walk with Him in the cool of the day. Prayer became their lifeline, a way to reach out across the chasm that sin had created. Can you imagine the mix of love and sorrow they must have felt each time they called out to their Creator? Despite the hardships, there were moments of joy too. The first time a seed they planted sprouted into a healthy plant. The wonder of holding their newborn sons. The simple pleasure of a warm fire on a cold night. These small victories reminded them that even in a fallen world, beauty and goodness could still be found. As Cain and Abel grew, they absorbed not just the stories of Eden, but the resilience of their parents. They learned to find purpose in work, to create rather than simply consume. The The stage was set for a story of longing and the search for meaning. These boys, born outside of paradise, would have to forge their own paths in a world that was both wondrous and dangerous. So, as you drift towards sleep, ponder this. How did life change for Adam and Eve after leaving Eden? It became harder, yes, but also richer in many ways. They discovered the satisfaction of creating something with their own hands. They experienced the deep bond that comes from facing challenges together. And they learned that even in imperfection, there is room for growth, for love, and for hope. Their story, and the story of their sons, reminds us that paradise isn't just a place we've lost. It's also something we carry within us, a memory and a promise that shapes how we see the world and how we choose to live in it. Chapter 2. Childhood in a Fallen World. While Adam and Eve's story was one of loss, their son's tale began with wide-eyed wonder. Imagine a world where every discovery is tinged with both awe and an inexplicable sense of absence. For young Cain and Abel, this was not just childhood. It was the dawn of humanity's true journey. Picture little Cain, his eyes bright with curiosity, as he takes his first steps into the world beyond the family shelter. Every leaf, every stone, every creature is a new marvel to him. He runs his fingers through the soil, feeling its texture and coolness. The wind whispers through the trees, carrying scents he's never encountered before. Can you see the wonder on his face as he watches a butterfly emerge from its chrysalis, its wings unfurling like a living miracle? Not far behind, toddling on unsteady legs, comes Abel. He watches his big brother with a mixture of admiration and eagerness. Abel's world is filtered through Cain's experiences. When Cain points excitedly at a colorful bird, Abel's eyes light up too. The younger brother's laughter echoes Cain's, a joyful harmony in this new world. Their earliest memories are a tapestry woven with the vibrant threads of nature's beauty. Imagine the boys chasing each other through fields of wildflowers, their bare feet cushioned by soft grass. They splash in clear streams, marveling at the fish darting between their legs. At night, they gaze up at a sky ablaze with stars, more numerous than they could ever count. Yet, amidst all this wonder, there's a whisper of something missing. It's in the furrow of Adam's brow as he pauses in his work, looking at something only he can see. It's in the wistful sigh that escapes Eve's lips as she gathers fruit, her hands remembering a time when the task was effortless. The boys don't understand it fully, but they feel it, a shadow that occasionally dims the brightness of their world. As Cain and Abel grow, their parents' teachings shape their understanding of God and the world around them. Picture the family gathered around a fire in the cool of the evening. Adam's deep voice rises and falls as he recounts tales of Eden. Eve adds details, her eyes shining with the memory of perfect communion with their Creator. The brothers listen, spellbound. They hear of talking animals, of fruit that granted knowledge, of walks with God Himself. Can you imagine how these stories must have fired their young imaginations? In their minds, Eden becomes a shimmering dream, just out of reach. This concept of paradise lost becomes a central part of Cain and Abel's identity. It colors how they see the world around them. When Cain struggles to coax plants from the stubborn earth, he remembers the stories of effortless abundance in Eden. As Abel tends to the first animals they've managed to domesticate, he wonders about the harmony that once existed between all creatures. So, what were Cain and Abel's earliest memories of childhood? They were a mixture of joy and an unnameable longing. The excitement of discovering a nest full of speckled eggs. The frustration of thorns piercing tender skin while reaching for berries. The comfort of their mother's embrace after a frightening encounter with a wild animal. The pride of helping their father build a shelter to protect them from storms. These memories were also shaped by the rhythm of their days. Dawn brought the gentle wake-up call of birdsong and the scent of dew on grass. Mornings were filled with chores, gathering food, tending to young plants, learning to make tools. Afternoons might find them exploring further from home, always within the protective gaze of their parents. Evenings were for stories, for questions about God and Eden, for gazing at the stars and wondering about their place in this vast world. As Cain and Abel grow, the seeds of their future paths begin to take root. Cain finds satisfaction in working the soil, in nurturing seeds into plants that provide food for the family. His hands become calloused, his back strong from bending over rows of crops. Abel, gentler in nature, shows a gift for understanding animals. He learns to read the body language of the creatures around them, to anticipate their needs and behaviors. These early inclinations are like tender shoots, reaching towards the sun. Neither brother knows yet how these seeds will grow, or how their choices will shape not just their own lives, but the course of human history. For now, they are simply two boys, born into a world of beauty and challenge, carrying within them the echoes of a lost paradise and the potential for an unknown future. As you rest there, let your mind wander through the childhood of Cain and Abel. Feel the mix of wonder and subtle longing that colored their days. Their story reminds us that even in a fallen world, there is room for discovery, for joy, and for the first stirrings of the unique paths we are meant to follow. Chapter 3: Diverging Paths. The scent of freshly turned earth mingles with the soft bleating of lambs. Two brothers stand side by side, yet their hearts are pulled in opposite directions. What unseen currents were already shaping their destinies? As Cain and Abel take their first steps into adulthood, a question hangs in the air. Can two paths, both born of paradise lost, lead to the same place? As young men, Cain and Abel find themselves at a crossroads, their childhood curiosity blossoming into distinct passions. Imagine Cain, his hands deep in the rich soil, a look of intense concentration on his face. The earth seems to speak to him in a language only he can understand. Each seed he plants is a promise, a pact between him and the ground beneath his feet. For Cain, cultivation becomes more than just a way to provide food. It's a form of creation, a way to bring forth life from the very dust. Can you picture the satisfaction in his eyes as he watches the first green shoots push through the soil? There's a sense of control, of mastery over nature that appeals to his strong-willed personality. Now, shift your gaze to Abel, standing amidst a flock of gentle sheep. His touch is light, his movements calm and reassuring. The animals respond to him with trust, sensing his innate kindness. Abel's work as a shepherd allows him to nurture and protect, qualities that resonate deeply with his compassionate nature. These choices in occupation aren't merely about practicality. They reflect the very essence of who Cain and Abel are becoming. Cain's work demands patience, yes, but also a certain forceful determination. He must battle against the whims of weather, coaxing life from a sometimes reluctant earth. This shapes him into a man of action, someone who believes in the power of his own efforts to yield results. Abel's path, on the other hand, requires a different kind of strength. As a shepherd, he must be ever vigilant, yet gentle. His days are spent in quiet communion with his flock, attuned to their needs and the subtle rhythms of nature. This fosters in Abel a deep sense of empathy and an ability to find joy in the simple moments of life. Can you feel the growing contrast between the brothers? Cain, with his calloused hands and sun-weathered face, stands tall and proud of his accomplishments. The fields he tends are a testament to his hard work and ingenuity. Abel, with his peaceful demeanor and watchful eyes, moves with a grace that speaks of his harmony with the natural world. As the seasons pass, these differences become more pronounced. Cain's personality takes on an edge of intensity. He thrives on the challenges his work presents, each successful harvest a personal victory. There's a fire in him, a drive to prove himself not just to his family, but to the very earth itself. Abel, in contrast, grows ever more attuned to the gentle rhythms of life. His days are marked by the bleating of lambs, the changing of seasons, the ebb and flow of life within his flock. This nurtures in him a deep sense of humility and gratitude. Where Cain sees obstacles to be overcome, Abel sees miracles to be cherished. How did these different career paths shape Cain and Abel's personalities? The answer lies in the very nature of their work. Cain's cultivation of crops required him to impose his will upon nature, to bend it to his purposes. This fostered in him a sense of pride in his own abilities, a belief that through sheer determination, he could shape the world around him. Abel's shepherding, on the other hand, demanded a different approach. He had to work in harmony with nature, to understand and respect the needs of his flock. This cultivated in him a spirit of cooperation and a deep appreciation for the interconnectedness of all living things. As you rest there, picturing these two brothers, consider how their chosen paths might set the stage for future events. Cain, with his strong will and desire for control, might struggle with situations beyond his influence. Abel, with his gentle nature and acceptance of life's ebb and flow, might face challenges when confronted with conflict or aggression. These diverging paths, born from the same soil of their childhood, would lead Cain and Abel to very different places, not just in terms of their daily lives, but in their understanding of the world, their relationship with each other, and ultimately their connection to the divine. As night falls and the brothers retire to their separate dwellings, Cain to his sturdy home near the fields, Abel to his simple shelter among the grazing lands, a sense of anticipation fills the air. Their choices have set them on distinct trajectories, each with its own trials and triumphs. How will these paths intersect in the days to come? And what role will their differing approaches to life play in the unfolding drama of humanity's early days? Let these thoughts settle in your mind as you drift towards sleep. The story of Cain and Abel reminds us that our choices, even those that seem simple or natural, can shape not just our own destinies, but the very course of history itself. Chapter 4. The First Offerings. Imagine the world holding its breath as Cain and Abel prepare to present their first offerings to God. The air is thick with anticipation, and the brothers' hearts race with a mix of excitement and nervous energy. This moment, seemingly simple, will set in motion events that will echo through millennia. As the day of offering arrives, Abel surveys his flock with careful eyes. His gentle hands move over the animals, each one known to him by sight and temperament. He's not just looking for any sheep, he seeks the very best, the firstborn of his flock. Can you picture the tenderness in his gaze as he selects a lamb, perfect in form and without blemish? Abel's heart swells with gratitude as he prepares his offering. He thinks of the countless ways God has blessed him, the fertile grazing lands, the safety of his flock, the joy he finds in his work. Each of these gifts feels like a personal kindness from the Creator. As he leads the chosen lamb to the altar, Abel's steps are light, his spirit buoyed by a deep sense of reverence. The moment Abel presents his offering, something extraordinary happens. The air around him seems to shimmer, as if the veil between heaven and earth has grown thin. There's a palpable sense of God's pleasure, a warmth that envelopes Abel and his gift. Can you feel the energy in the air, the almost electric charge of divine approval? What is it about Abel's offering that pleases God so much? It's not just the outward perfection of the lamb, though that certainly plays a part. It's the heart behind the gift, Abel's sincere gratitude, his willingness to give his very best. In this moment, Abel's offering becomes more than just an animal on an altar. It's a physical expression of his love and devotion to God. As the offering is accepted, Abel feels a profound connection to the Creator. It's as if, for a brief moment, he catches a glimpse of the harmony that existed in Eden. The distance between himself and God, always present since his parents' expulsion from the garden, seems to shrink. Can you imagine the joy that fills Abel's heart, the sense of being truly seen and known by the divine? This act of worship, simple yet profound, sets a standard that will echo through time. Future generations will look back on Abel's offering as an example of true devotion. It will become a touchstone for those seeking to understand what it means to give one's best to God. The impact of this moment extends beyond just Abel and his relationship with God. It ripples outward, touching everyone around him. Adam and Eve watch with a mixture of pride and wistfulness, perhaps reminded of their own walks with God in the garden. And Cain? Well, Cain's reaction is a story for another moment. As the glow of divine approval lingers, Abel stands in quiet awe. He's experienced something transcendent, a connection to the divine that he'll carry with him always. This moment will shape his understanding of worship, of gratitude, of what it means to live in right relationship with the Creator. The sun begins to set, casting long shadows across the land. The day of offerings is drawing to a close, but its effects will be felt long into the future. As you rest there, picturing this pivotal scene, consider the power of a gift given with a full and grateful heart. How might Abel's example inspire us in our own acts of devotion? Let the warmth of this moment wash over you as you drift towards sleep. The story of Abel's offering reminds us that true worship isn't about grand gestures or elaborate rituals. It's about the sincerity of our hearts, our willingness to give our very best to the one who gives us everything. Chapter 5. Cain's disappointment. Have you ever felt the sting of rejection, especially when you thought you'd done everything right? Cain approaches his offering with confidence, but God's response will shake him to his core. What could possibly go wrong when presenting a gift to the Creator? Picture Cain, his arms laden with the fruits of his labor. The sun-warmed produce gleams with vibrant colors: ripe tomatoes, golden wheat, and plump figs. Each piece represents countless hours of toil, a physical testament to Cain's dedication and skill. As he arranges his offering, a sense of pride swells in his chest. Surely, he thinks, God will be pleased with this bounty. Cain's eyes flicker towards the spot where Abel's offering was accepted. The air still seems to shimmer there, a lingering reminder of divine favor. With a deep breath, Cain presents his own gift. He waits, expecting to feel that same rush of warmth, that unmistakable presence of God's approval. But something is amiss. The moments stretch on, and the air remains still. There's no shimmering light, no sense of divine pleasure. Cain's confident smile begins to falter. He glances around, wondering if he's missed something. Surely God just needs a moment to fully appreciate the quality of his offering. The silence that follows is deafening. It presses in on Cain from all sides, growing heavier with each passing second. Can you feel the weight of that silence? The creeping sense of dread as Cain realizes something has gone terribly wrong? Confusion clouds Cain's mind. He looks down at his offering, still beautiful and bountiful. How could this not be enough? He's given the best of his harvest, the fruits of his sweat and toil. In Cain's eyes, this offering represents everything he is: hardworking, skilled, devoted to mastering the earth as God commanded. Yet, as the silence stretches on, it becomes painfully clear. Cain's offering has fallen short in God's eyes. But why? This question burns in Cain's mind, growing hotter with each moment of divine indifference. He thinks of Abel's accepted offering, of the obvious pleasure God took in his brother's gift. The contrast is stark and cutting. A mixture of emotions begins to churn within Cain. Confusion swirls together with a growing sense of anger. How could God reject his honest work? Doesn't he see the effort Cain has poured into cultivating the land? A bitter taste forms in Cain's mouth as he struggles to understand this apparent injustice. As you rest there, try to imagine the turmoil in Cain's heart. The pride that had buoyed him just moments ago now feels hollow, leaving behind a gnawing emptiness. In its place, resentment begins to take root. It's a small seed at first, barely noticeable amidst the shock and confusion. But it's there, nestled in the fertile soil of Cain's wounded ego. So why was Cain's offering rejected by God? The answer isn't as simple as the quality of the gift itself. Remember how Abel chose his offering with reverence, gratitude, and a willingness to give his very best. Cain's approach, in contrast, seems to have lacked that same spirit of true devotion. Perhaps Cain saw his offering as a transaction, a way to earn God's favor through his own efforts. He may have been so focused on the outward appearance of his gift that he neglected the state of his heart. God, who sees beyond the surface, recognized this disconnect. This moment becomes a pivotal point in Cain's life. The seed of resentment planted by this rejection will grow, nurtured by comparison and jealousy. It will twist Cain's understanding of himself, his brother, and his relationship with God. As the day fades into evening, Cain is left standing alone with his rejected offering. The fruits that once seemed so perfect now appear dull and lifeless to his eyes. He gathers them up, each piece a reminder of his unexplained failure. As he walks away, The weight of the produce is nothing compared to the heaviness in his heart. This experience will shape Cain's actions in the days to come. The confusion and anger simmering within him are dangerous emotions, capable of driving him towards choices he might never have considered before. As you drift towards sleep, consider how a single moment of disappointment can set in motion a chain of events that will change not just one life, but the course of human history. Chapter 6. The Root of Jealousy. In the quiet aftermath of the offerings, a shadow begins to creep across Cain's heart. The sun still shines brightly, but for Cain, the world has lost its luster. He watches Abel from afar, unable to look away as his brother basks in the warm glow of divine approval. Can you feel the weight settling on Cain's shoulders, the bitter taste forming in his mouth? With each passing day, the contrast between the brothers grows starker. Abel moves through life with a newfound lightness, his eyes shining with the joy of one who knows they are truly seen and loved. His work as a shepherd seems effortless now, blessed by an unseen hand. Cain, on the other hand, finds himself sinking deeper into a quagmire of conflicting emotions. Remember the days of their childhood, when Cain was the protective older brother, guiding Abel through their new world? Those memories, once treasured, now turn sour in Cain's mind. He thinks of how Abel used to look up to him with wide-eyed admiration. Now, it seems Abel has surpassed him in the most important arena of all, God's favor. As you rest there, try to imagine the tangle of thoughts swirling through Cain's mind. Envy wraps itself around his heart like a thorny vine, its tendrils reaching into every corner of his being. Questions plague him day and night. Why Abel and not me? What makes his offering so special? Am I not working just as hard, if not harder? These thoughts chip away at Cain's sense of self-worth. The pride he once took in his work as a cultivator of the earth begins to crumble. Every successful harvest, once a source of joy, now feels hollow in comparison to Abel's divine blessing. Can you sense the growing desperation in Cain's spirit, the need to prove himself worthy? Cain's perception of his brother undergoes a troubling transformation. Where he once saw a beloved sibling, he now sees a rival. Abel's every success, every moment of happiness, becomes a perceived slight against Cain. The brotherly bond that once seemed unbreakable begins to strain under the weight of comparison. Picture the two brothers working side by side in the fields. Abel offers a kind word, a gesture of help, unaware of the storm brewing in Cain's heart. But Cain can only see these actions as condescension, further proof of his own inadequacy. The gap between them widens with each passing day, though only Cain seems aware of the growing chasm. How did Cain's jealousy of Abel grow over time? It was a gradual process, like a slow-acting poison seeping into his soul. At first, it manifested as simple disappointment and confusion over God's rejection. But as days turned to weeks, and weeks to months, that initial hurt festered into something far more dangerous. Cain began to scrutinize every interaction, every blessing that came Abel's way. He convinced himself that Abel was flaunting his favored status, though in reality, Abel remained as humble and kind as ever. Cain's world became a distorted mirror, reflecting back only his own insecurities and resentments. The jealousy twisted Cain's memories, recoloring his entire history with Abel. Childhood games became competitions he had lost. Shared laughter morphed into mockery at his expense. Even their parents' love, once thought equal, now seemed unfairly balanced in Abel's favor. Can you feel the suffocating grip of these warped perceptions closing in around Cain? As time passed, Cain's jealousy began to manifest physically. His shoulders hunched under invisible weight, his brow furrowed in constant contemplation. The easy smile that once graced his face became a rare sight. He withdrew from family gatherings, unable to bear the apparent ease with which Abel moved through life. This festering emotion set the stage for a tragic confrontation. Like a pot left too long on the fire, Cain's inner turmoil was bound to boil over. The brotherly love that should have been a source of strength and support had become corrupted, twisted into something unrecognizable. As you drift towards sleep, consider the power of unchecked jealousy. how it can take root in the fertile soil of disappointment and grow into something monstrous. Cain's story serves as a stark reminder of the importance of guarding our hearts against the poison of comparison. The tragic path Cain now walks was not inevitable. At each step, there was a choice to reach out, to seek understanding, to let go of resentment. But blinded by his own pain, Cain could not see these alternatives. And so, with each passing day, he moved closer to a moment that would change not just his life, but the course of human history. Chapter 7. Divine Warning. Just when it seems Cain's jealousy has spiraled beyond control, a divine presence makes itself known. Imagine standing in Cain's sandals as the creator of the universe addresses you directly. What would God say in such a moment? His message is both chilling and hopeful, offering a glimpse into the very nature of sin itself. God's infinite wisdom sees the darkness growing in Cain's heart. Like a loving parent watching a child teeter on the edge of a dangerous cliff, he cannot stay silent. With boundless compassion, God speaks directly to Cain. Can you feel the weight of this moment? The air grows thick with anticipation as the divine voice breaks through the turmoil of Cain's thoughts. God's words are a delicate balance of warning and invitation. He doesn't condemn Cain for his feelings, but instead offers a path forward. Picture the gentleness in his tone as he acknowledges Cain's struggle. "Why are you angry?" he asks. "And why has your countenance fallen?" These aren't accusatory questions, but an invitation for Cain to examine his own heart. Then comes a vivid image that will echo through the ages. God speaks of sin as a predator, crouching at the door of Cain's heart. Can you see it in your mind's eye? A shadowy beast, muscles coiled and ready to pounce. This is no mere metaphor, but a stark warning of the very real danger Cain faces if he lets his jealousy fester. But God doesn't leave Cain without hope. In the same breath as his warning, he reminds Cain of his own strength. "You should rule over it," God says of the sin waiting to consume him. These words are a powerful affirmation of Cain's free will, a reminder that he is not helpless in the face of temptation. Can you feel the surge of potential in this divine vote of confidence? As you rest there, pondering this pivotal moment, consider the crossroads at which Cain stands. Will he heed this divine counsel? The choice he makes next will ripple through time, shaping not just his own fate, but the course of human history. God has laid bare the nature of sin and the power of choice. Now it's up to Cain to decide which path he'll take. What exactly did God say to warn Cain about his anger? His words were few, but profoundly impactful. "If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin lies at the door. And its desire is for you, but you should rule over it." In these two sentences, God encapsulates the entire human struggle with temptation and the power of choice. The first part of God's message is an encouragement. He reminds Cain that acceptance or divine favor is still within reach. All Cain needs to do is do well. It's a call to examine his actions, his motivations, and most importantly, the state of his heart. Can you imagine the spark of hope this might have ignited in Cain's troubled soul? But God doesn't shy away from the harsh reality of Cain's situation. The warning about sin lying in wait is a sobering reminder of the consequences of giving in to jealousy and resentment. It's a vivid illustration of how our negative emotions, if left unchecked, can become a force that threatens to overpower us. Yet even in this dire warning, there's an underlying message of empowerment. God tells Cain that he should rule over sin. This isn't just a suggestion. It's a divine acknowledgement of Cain's capacity to choose right over wrong. It's a reminder that no matter how strong the temptation, the power to resist ultimately lies within us. As the echo of God's words fades, Cain is left with a monumental decision. Will he embrace the path of doing well, letting go of his jealousy and finding acceptance? Or will he allow the crouching sin to pounce, giving in to the darkness growing in his heart? The tension in this moment is palpable. Can you feel the weight of this choice pressing down on Cain? The consequences of Cain's decision will stretch far beyond this single moment. His choice will set in motion a chain of events that will leave an indelible mark on human history. As you drift towards sleep, ponder the power of choice in your own life. How often do we stand at similar crossroads, faced with the decision to nurture love or give in to darker impulses? God's warning to Cain serves as a timeless reminder of our own struggles with temptation and the strength we have to overcome it. It's a message that resonates through the ages, speaking to the very core of what it means to be human. As you close your eyes, let these divine words settle in your heart, a beacon of hope and a call to choose wisely in the face of life's challenges. Chapter 8. The Fatal Invitation. As God's warning fades, a chilling silence descends. Cain's mind churns with conflicting emotions, but one thought rises above the rest. What if he could rid himself of his brother once and for all? The path he chooses next will irreversibly alter the course of human history. Imagine Cain standing alone in the field, his hands clenched into fists as he wrestles with the divine words still echoing in his ears. The sun beats down mercilessly, mirroring the intensity of his inner turmoil. Can you feel the weight of his decision pressing down, heavier than the humid air surrounding him? As Cain's eyes scan the horizon, they land on Abel tending his flock in the distance. A plan begins to form, dark and insidious. He knows he must get Abel alone, away from the watchful eyes of their parents and the protective circle of his sheep. The field, once a place of growth and abundance, now holds a sinister potential in Cain's twisted imagination. With forced casualness, Cain approaches his brother. Abel, he calls out, his voice carefully controlled to hide the storm raging within. Would you walk with me in the field? I could use your help with something. The words taste like ash in his mouth, but Cain forces a smile. Picture Abel's face lighting up at his brother's invitation. Unaware of the danger lurking behind Cain's eyes, he agrees without hesitation. Can you see the trust in Abel's expression? The eagerness to spend time with the brother he still loves and admires? It's a stark contrast to the darkness swirling in Cain's heart. As the brothers set off towards the field, tension builds like a gathering storm. Cain's steps are heavy, each one bringing him closer to a point of no return. Abel, oblivious to the danger, chatters happily about his day, his flock, his latest prayers. His words wash over Cain, barely registering through the roar of blood in his ears. The field stretches out before them, a sea of green under the vast blue sky. It's a place that should represent life and abundance, but today it holds a darker purpose. With each step, the brothers move further from the safety of home and deeper into Cain's trap. Cain's words become a mask, hiding his true intentions. He asks Abel about his flock, feigning interest in his brother's work. Tell me, he says, his voice strained, how do you choose which lamb to offer? How do you know what will please God? The questions are barbed, each one designed to remind Cain of his own rejection. As you rest there, try to imagine the growing dread in the air. It's like the calm before a violent storm, when animals grow quiet and the wind holds its breath. Can you feel the wrongness of this moment, the way it goes against everything brothers should be to each other? How did Cain lure Abel to the field where the murder would take place? It was through a simple invitation, cloaked in the guise of brotherly companionship. Cain played on Abel's trust, his willingness to help, his desire to mend the rift that had grown between them. In Abel's eyes, this walk could be a chance to reconnect, to bridge the distance that had formed since their offerings. But for Cain, each step brings them closer to a moment that will change everything. The weight of his decision presses down on him, growing heavier with each passing second. Part of him still wrestles with God's warning, the chance to turn back from this dark path. But jealousy and resentment have taken too firm a hold, drowning out the voice of reason. As they reach the heart of the field, far from any prying eyes, Cain steps slow. The moment of truth approaches, hanging heavy in the air between them. Abel, still unaware of the danger, turns to his brother with a smile. What did you need help with, Cain? He asks, his voice filled with genuine concern. It's a question that hangs unanswered as Cain's resolve hardens. The field, once a symbol of life and growth, now stands witness to a moment that will shatter the innocence of creation. The brothers' fateful journey has led them to the precipice of an act that will echo through millennia. As night begins to fall, casting long shadows across the land. The stage is set for a confrontation that will change the course of human history. The trust between brothers, the bond of family, stands on the edge of a knife. What happens next will leave an indelible mark on the world, a stain that can never be fully washed away. Chapter 9. The Unthinkable Act. The night air grows thick with tension as Cain and Abel stand alone in the field. The stars above, once a source of wonder, now seem to dim, as if sensing the tragedy about to unfold. Can you feel the weight of this moment, suspended in time like a held breath? In a heartbeat, everything changes. Cain's jealousy, long simmering beneath the surface, erupts with volcanic force. His eyes, once filled with brotherly love, now burn with a rage that consumes all reason. Before Abel can react, Cain's hand reaches for a nearby stone, hefting its weight with deadly intent. Time seems to slow as Cain's arm arcs through the air. The stone, once a simple part of God's creation, becomes an instrument of destruction. It strikes Abel with a sickening thud, and the world as they know it shatters. Abel's eyes widen in shock and betrayal. Can you see the confusion etched on his face as he stumbles backward? This is his brother, his protector, now turned aggressor. The pain that blossoms is more than physical. It's the agony of a trust irreparably broken. As Abel falls, the earth beneath him seems to cry out. This same soil, which Cain had tended with such care, now receives an offering it was never meant to hold. Abel's blood seeps into the ground, staining it with the mark of humanity's first murder. In the aftermath, a terrible silence descends. The usual nighttime chorus of crickets and distant animal calls falls eerily quiet, as if all of creation holds its breath in horror. Can you feel the wrongness of this moment, how it goes against the very fabric of the world God made? Cain stands alone, his chest heaving with exertion and emotion. The rage that propelled him drains away, leaving behind a hollow emptiness. As the full weight of his actions crashes down upon him, his knees buckle. He falls to the blood-soaked earth, hands trembling as the realization of what he's done takes hold. The world has changed irrevocably in this single tragic moment. The bond between brothers, meant to be a source of strength and love, lies shattered beyond repair. The earth itself seems to mourn, the once fertile soil now tainted with innocent blood. As you picture this scene, let the gravity of it settle in your mind. The first murder in human history has just occurred, and with it, the last remnants of Eden on earth have crumbled away. Can you sense the shift in the very air, as if the universe itself has tilted on its axis? Cain's hands, once instruments of creation as he tilled the soil, are now stained with his brother's blood. He stares at them in horror, unable to comprehend the magnitude of his actions. The stone, now discarded, lies nearby, a silent witness to humanity's fall from grace. In this moment, the innocence of humanity is lost forever. The potential for such violence, once merely a divine warning, has become a terrifying reality. The harmony of creation, already fractured by Adam and Eve's disobedience, now lies in ruins. As the night wears on, Cain remains frozen in place, unable to tear his gaze from Abel's lifeless form. The body of his brother, once full of life and love, now lies still as a statue. Can you imagine the torment in Cain's mind as memories of their shared childhood flash before his eyes? Every laugh, every shared secret, every moment of brotherly love now tainted by this unthinkable act. The consequences of this moment will ripple through time, shaping the course of human history. In this field, under the cold light of the stars, the concept of murder has entered the world. It's a darkness that will haunt humanity, a shadow cast across the generations to come. As dawn approaches, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, the beauty of the new day stands in stark contrast to the horror of the night. Cain, still rooted to the spot, must now face the aftermath of his actions. The world awakens, unaware that everything has changed. But for Cain, there is no going back. The path ahead is dark and uncertain, forever altered by this single, devastating choice. Chapter 10. The Divine Response. As the first rays of sunlight touch the blood-stained earth, a deeper darkness descends. The very air seems to thicken, pressing down on Cain with an unseen weight. What force could make even the morning light feel ominous? The answer is about to shatter Cain's world once more. Imagine the heavens above growing dim, as if a great shadow is passing over the sun. The birds fall silent, and even the wind holds its breath. Can you feel the shift in the atmosphere, the electric charge of a divine presence drawing near? This is no gentle whisper of God in the garden. It's the approach of the Almighty, coming to confront the first murderer in history. God's voice breaks the eerie silence, filled with a sorrow deeper than any human heart could fathom. Cain, he calls out, the name hanging heavy in the air. It's not a shout of anger, but a question laden with grief. Can you hear the pain in that single word, the disappointment of a creator whose creation has turned to violence? In this moment, God's omniscience is crystal clear. He knows exactly what has transpired in that lonely field. The blood of Abel cries out from the ground, a silent witness that cannot be ignored. Yet, in his infinite mercy, God gives Cain a chance to confess. "Where is Abel your brother?" he asks, offering Cain an opportunity to unburden his soul. Picture Cain standing there, his hands still stained with his brother's blood. The weight of God's gaze presses down on him, more crushing than any physical burden. The air around him feels thick, almost unbreathable. Can you sense the turmoil in Cain's heart? The desperate desire to hide warring with the futility of trying to deceive an all-knowing God? God's words cut through Cain's feeble attempts at deception like a sword of truth. "What have you done?" he demands, his voice resonating with the power that spoke the universe into existence. It's not really a question, but a command to acknowledge the horrific reality of Cain's actions. What was God's immediate reaction to Abel's death? It wasn't a bolt of lightning or an earthquake to swallow the murderer. Instead, it was a response of profound sorrow and disappointment. God, who had walked with Adam and Eve in the cool of the day, now faced the grim reality of how far humanity had fallen. His creation, made in his own image, had turned to violence against itself. This divine confrontation sets the stage for Cain's judgment. But it's more than just a precursor to punishment. It's a moment that reveals the very heart of God, a being of perfect justice, yes, but also of unfathomable mercy. Even in the face of the first murder, God offers Cain a chance to come clean, to take responsibility for his actions. As you rest there, try to imagine the weight of this moment. The creator of the universe, face to face with the first murderer. The air crackles with divine power, yet it's tempered with a father's grief. Can you feel the tension between justice and mercy playing out in this cosmic confrontation? God's response to Abel's death teaches us something profound about his nature. He doesn't turn away from humanity's evil, pretending it doesn't exist. Neither does he react with blind rage, destroying the offender without a second thought. Instead, he engages, he questions, he offers a chance for repentance even in the darkest of moments. This interaction between God and Cain will echo through the ages, a testament to both the seriousness of sin and the boundless mercy of the divine. It sets the stage not just for Cain's judgment, but for God's ongoing relationship with humanity. A relationship that will be marked by justice and consequences, yes, but also by unending love and the constant offer of redemption. As the sun climbs higher in the sky, its warmth unable to touch the chill in Cain's soul, the stage is set for divine judgment. But even as that judgment approaches, the offer of confession, of unburdening the soul, remains open. It's a pattern that will repeat throughout human history. The interplay of human sin, divine justice, and the ever-present opportunity for repentance and redemption. Chapter 11. Cain's futile deception. The warmth of the sun can't penetrate the chill in Cain's soul, but something far colder is about to grip him. In the next breath, he'll attempt the impossible, to deceive the one who knows all. What drives a man to lie to God himself? Panic rises in Cain's chest as he faces divine scrutiny. The weight of God's gaze presses down on him, more crushing than any physical burden. Can you feel the rapid beating of his heart, the cold sweat breaking out on his brow? In this moment, Cain stands at a crossroads. Will he confess his terrible deed, or will he try to hide behind a veil of lies? With desperation clouding his judgment, Cain chooses deception. His voice trembles as he utters those infamous words, "Am I my brother's keeper?" It's a feeble attempt at deflection, a question meant to shift responsibility away from himself. Can you hear the false bravado in his tone, the way his voice cracks on the last syllable? But Cain's words ring hollow in the face of God's omniscience. The air itself seems to recoil from his lie, as if creation itself is offended by this attempt to deceive its maker. The futility of his deception becomes painfully clear. How could he have thought, even for a moment, that he could hide the truth from the one who sees all? Picture Cain standing there, his hands still stained with Abel's blood. The evidence of his crime is etched into his very being, visible to the all-seeing eyes of God. As the seconds tick by, the weight of truth bears down on him. Can you feel the suffocating pressure of guilt and fear closing in around him? In this moment, Cain faces the full reality of his actions. The gravity of what he's done crashes over him like a tidal wave. It's not just the act of murder that condemns him, but this futile attempt to hide it. The innocence lost in that fateful moment in the field seems to pale in comparison to this deliberate choice to lie to God himself. How did Cain try to hide his terrible deed from God? It was through a simple question, a deflection meant to avoid responsibility. Am I my brother's keeper? These 5 words, spoken in a moment of panic, would echo through history as a testament to humanity's capacity for self-deception. But they were more than just words. They were a desperate attempt to maintain a facade of innocence, to pretend that the unthinkable hadn't happened. Cain's strategy was to feign ignorance. By questioning his responsibility for Abel's whereabouts, he hoped to create doubt. Perhaps, in his fear-addled mind, he thought he could convince God that he simply didn't know where Abel was. It was a child's tactic, really. If I close my eyes, you can't see me. But in this case, the eyes Cain was trying to avoid were those of the all-knowing Creator. As you rest there, contemplating this pivotal moment, consider the desperation that must have driven Cain to such a futile act. Can you imagine the turmoil in his soul? The frantic search for any way out, any escape from the consequences of his actions? It's a very human response, isn't it? When faced with our worst mistakes, how often do we too try to hide, to deflect, to avoid taking responsibility? But Cain's failed deception paves the way for God's judgment. His lie, rather than shielding him, only serves to compound his sin. It's as if each word he speaks digs his hole deeper, burying him under the weight of his own deceit. The momentary relief he might have felt in denying his crime quickly crumbles, leaving behind a crushing sense of inevitability. In this moment, Cain stands naked before God, stripped of all pretense. His futile attempt at deception has only served to highlight the enormity of his crime. As the last echoes of his lie fade away, the stage is set for divine judgment. The air grows heavy with anticipation, charged with the weight of what's to come. Let these thoughts settle in your mind as you drift towards sleep. Cain's story reminds us of the futility of trying to hide our actions from God, and the power of facing our mistakes with honesty. It's a lesson that resonates through the ages, speaking to the very core of our relationship with the divine. Chapter 12. The Weight of Judgment. In the stillness that follows Cain's failed deception, God's voice rumbles like thunder across the land. Can you feel the ground trembling beneath your feet, the very air vibrating with divine power? This is the moment of judgment, when the full weight of Cain's actions comes crashing down upon him. God's words cut through the air, sharp and unyielding. What have you done? He demands, his voice filled with sorrow and righteous anger. Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Can you imagine the horror that grips Cain's heart as he realizes the true magnitude of his crime? The earth itself bears witness against him, the soil stained with Abel's innocent blood. As God continues to speak, the severity of Cain's punishment unfolds. The very earth that Cain has tended with such care now turns against him. When you work the ground, God declares, it will no longer yield its crops for you. Picture the fields Cain once nurtured, now barren and unyielding under his touch. The soil that once brought forth abundance now refuses to cooperate, as if recoiling from the hands stained with brotherly blood. But the punishment doesn't end there. Cain, once rooted to the land as a tiller of the ground, is now condemned to a life of restless wandering. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth, God proclaims. Can you feel the weight of these words settling on Cain's shoulders? His entire identity, his connection to home and family, is stripped away in an instant. The severity of this divine decree reflects the gravity of Cain's crime. It's not just about the act of murder, but about the shattering of the sacred bond between brothers. God's judgment echoes the ripple effects of Cain's actions. Just as he disrupted the natural order through violence, now the natural world disrupts his life in return. Yet, even in this moment of harsh judgment, there's a surprising note of protection in God's words. As Cain cries out in fear of retribution, God places a mark upon him. I will put a mark on Cain, he says, so that no one who finds him will kill him. Can you picture this mysterious sign, both a brand of guilt and a shield of divine protection? It's a complex mercy, ensuring Cain will live to face the full consequences of his actions. As the full impact of God's words sinks in, Cain begins to grasp the far-reaching consequences of his sin. The life he knew, the future he had imagined for himself, crumbles away like sand through his fingers. Can you sense the despair washing over him as he realizes how one moment of violent rage has altered the course of his entire existence? What punishment did God give Cain for his sin? It was multifaceted, touching every aspect of Cain's life. First, his connection to the earth was severed. The ground that once responded to his care would now withhold its strength, refusing to yield crops. Second, he was condemned to a life of wandering, cut off from the stability of home and community. And finally, he was marked protected from death, yes, but also branded as one who had committed an unthinkable act. This divine decree shapes the course of Cain's life in ways he could never have imagined. From a respected tiller of the ground, he becomes an outcast, forever seeking a place to belong. The skills he honed over years of farming become useless as the earth refuses to cooperate with his efforts. Can you imagine the loneliness of his existence, carrying the weight of his crime and God's judgment wherever he goes? As you ponder these events, let the gravity of Cain's punishment settle in your mind. It's a stark reminder of the consequences our actions can have, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us. God's judgment on Cain serves as a timeless warning about the destructive power of unchecked anger and jealousy. Yet, even in this harsh sentence, we see glimpses of God's complex nature. His justice is tempered with protection, his punishment aimed not at destruction but at forcing Cain to face the reality of his actions. As you drift towards sleep, consider how this ancient tale speaks to our own lives. How often do our choices ripple out, affecting not just ourselves but the world around us? And how might we, like Cain, face the consequences of our actions with the knowledge that even in judgment, there is still a thread of divine mercy? Chapter 13. The family torn apart. The whispers of tragedy travel on the wind, carrying the unthinkable news to Adam and Eve. Can you picture their faces as they first hear of Abel's death? The shock, the disbelief, the desperate hope that it's all some terrible mistake. But as the truth sinks in, their world shatters all over again. Imagine the anguish that grips their hearts as they learn not only of Abel's death, but of Cain's role in it. The pain is twofold: one son lost to death, another to exile and sin. It's a grief unlike anything they've known before, deeper even than their expulsion from Eden. Can you feel the weight of it pressing down on them, threatening to crush their very souls? Adam and Eve cling to each other, their bodies racked with sobs. The memories of their sons as children flash through their minds. Cain's first steps, Abel's gentle laugh. How could it have come to this? The consequences of sin, which they thought they understood, now reveal themselves in ways they never could have imagined. As night falls, Adam and Eve sit in silence, the darkness a fitting backdrop for their sorrow. The world around them seems muted, as if all of creation mourns with them. Can you sense the emptiness in their home, the gaping void left by their son's absence? The places where Cain and Abel once sat, the tools they used, the beds they slept in, all serve as painful reminders of what's been lost. In the quiet hours before dawn, Adam's mind wanders back to Eden. Those perfect days in the garden now feel like a distant dream, more unreachable than ever. He remembers walking with God in the cool of the day, the harmony of all creation surrounding them. Now that harmony lies shattered, broken by an act of violence he never could have foreseen. Eve's thoughts turn to the moment she first held each of her sons. The joy she felt, the hopes and dreams she had for their futures. Now those dreams lie in ruins, replaced by a nightmare she can't wake from. Can you imagine the questions that torment her? Did she fail as a mother? Could she have done something to prevent this tragedy? As the first rays of sunlight pierce the darkness, Adam and Eve face the harsh reality of their new world. Their family, once whole and full of promise, now bears a wound that will never fully heal. The empty places at their table, the silence where there was once laughter, these daily reminders will be a constant ache in their hearts. How did Adam and Eve react to the loss of both their sons? With a grief so profound it seemed to age them overnight. Their eyes, once bright with the lingering light of Eden, now carry a sadness that will never fully fade. They move through their days as if in a fog, going through the motions of living while their hearts remain trapped in that moment of awful revelation. Yet, even in the depths of their sorrow, there are moments of bitter sweetness. They cling to memories of happier times, Abel's kindness, Cain's determination. These recollections are both a comfort and a torment, reminding them of what they've lost while keeping the love for their sons alive in their hearts. This tragedy reshapes Adam and Eve's understanding of the fallen world in ways they never anticipated. The consequences of their own disobedience in Eden now extend far beyond themselves, touching their children and all future generations. Can you sense the weight of responsibility settling on their shoulders? The knowledge that their actions have set in motion a chain of events with far-reaching consequences. As days turn to weeks, and weeks to months, Adam and Eve learn to carry their grief like a familiar burden. They find new purpose in tending to the earth, in nurturing the life around them. It's a small act of defiance against the death that has touched their family, a way of honoring Abel's memory and hoping for Cain's redemption. In quiet moments, they reach out to God, their relationship with him forever changed by this tragedy. Their prayers are different now, less confident, more pleading. They ask for strength to face each day, for comfort in their loss, and for hope that someday, somehow, their family might be whole again. As you rest there, pondering the depth of Adam and Eve's loss, consider how this ancient tale of grief speaks to our own experiences of sorrow and resilience. Their story reminds us that even in our darkest moments, when loss seems unbearable, we can find the strength to go on. It's a testament to the enduring power of love, hope, and the human spirit's capacity to find light even in the deepest darkness. Chapter 14. The Mark of Protection. As the weight of God's judgment settles upon Cain, a new fear grips his heart. The vast, unknown world stretches before him, and the enormity of his exile becomes painfully clear. Can you imagine the terror coursing through his veins as he realizes he must face this harsh new reality alone? Cain's voice trembles as he cries out to God, "My punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." The desperation in his words is palpable. Can you feel the anguish in his plea, the realization that his actions have cut him off not just from his family, but from God himself? But even in this darkest moment, a flicker of divine mercy shines through. God, in his infinite wisdom and compassion, responds to Cain's fear with an unexpected act of protection. "Not so," he declares, his voice resonating with authority and care. "Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over." And then, something extraordinary happens. God places a mark upon Cain. Picture this moment, the creator of the universe reaching out to touch the first murderer, not in punishment, but in an act of complex mercy. What might this mark have looked like? A physical symbol etched into Cain's skin? A mysterious glow that surrounds him? The Bible doesn't provide these details, leaving room for centuries of speculation and wonder. This sign serves a dual purpose. On one hand, it's a brand of guilt, a visible reminder of Cain's terrible deed. Wherever he goes, this mark will set him apart, a testament to the consequences of his actions. Can you imagine the weight of carrying such a visible sign of one's worst moment? The constant reminder of what was lost in that fateful moment of rage? Yet, this same mark also acts as a divine shield of protection. It's a warning to others, a clear message that despite Cain's crime, his life remains under God's jurisdiction. Anyone seeking to harm Cain would face severe consequences. It's a paradox, isn't it? The very thing that brands Cain as a murderer also ensures his safety as he wanders the earth. The nature of this mark has sparked countless debates and theories throughout history. Some have imagined it as a physical deformity, others as a supernatural aura. There are those who believe it might have been a distinctive tattoo or even a unique way of speaking. The mystery surrounding this mark invites us to ponder the complexities of divine justice and mercy. As you rest there, contemplating this moment, consider the depth of God's response to Cain. Even in the face of the first murder, God's justice is tempered with protection. It's a powerful reminder that no sin, no matter how grave, places us beyond the reach of divine mercy. Can you feel the weight of this truth settling in your heart? This mark stands as a testament to the intricate balance between consequence and compassion in God's dealings with humanity. It ensures that Cain will face the full impact of his actions, wandering the earth as an outcast. Yet it also preserves his life, offering a glimmer of hope for potential redemption. It's a vivid illustration of how God's ways often defy our simple understanding of justice. With the mark upon him, Cain sets out into the unknown. Picture him taking those first steps away from everything he's ever known, his shoulders hunched under the weight of his guilt and God's judgment. The familiar lands of his childhood fade behind him as he ventures into a world forever changed by his actions. Can you sense the mix of fear and resignation in his heart as he begins his life as a wanderer? So, what mark did God place on Cain and why? While the exact nature of the mark remains a mystery, its purpose is clear. It was a sign of God's complex justice, a visible reminder of Cain's sin that simultaneously ensured his protection. This mark would follow Cain throughout his wanderings, a constant testament to both the gravity of his crime and the enduring mercy of God. This final interaction between God and Cain closes one chapter of human history and opens another. The age of innocence is truly over, replaced by a world where violence has entered the human story. Yet even in this darker world, God's mercy remains a constant thread, offering protection and the possibility of redemption even to those who have fallen furthest. As Cain disappears into the distance, his solitary figure a stark reminder of how far humanity has fallen, we're left to ponder the complexities of divine justice and mercy. His story, marked by tragedy yet touched by God's protection, serves as a timeless reminder of the intricate dance between consequence and compassion in our relationship with the divine. Chapter 15. A new era begins. As Cain's solitary figure disappears into the distance, the world seems to hold its breath. The dust settles on the first act of murder, but its effects ripple outward like waves on a once tranquil pond. Can you feel the shift in the very air, as if the universe itself has tilted on its axis? The concept of violence has entered human consciousness, a dark seed planted in the fertile soil of free will. No longer is conflict limited to harsh words or hurt feelings. Now, the specter of physical harm looms over every disagreement, every flash of anger. Picture the way this knowledge changes even simple interactions. A raised voice carries new weight. A clenched fist becomes a potential weapon. Humanity's relationship with God and each other is forever altered. The trust that once flowed freely between brothers now carries an undercurrent of caution. Parents look at their children with a mixture of love and worry, wondering what capacity for both good and evil lies dormant in their hearts. Can you imagine the conversations around evening fires, as elders try to make sense of this new reality? The story of Cain and Abel spreads, carried on whispers and weighted glances. It becomes a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of jealousy's destructive power. Young ones listen with wide eyes as they learn of brotherly love twisted into something unrecognizable. The tale serves as both a warning and a mirror, inviting each listener to examine the darkness that might lurk in their own hearts. Yet, even in this shadow, a glimmer of hope remains. The mark of protection God placed on Cain speaks to a mercy that transcends human understanding. It's a reminder that no one, not even a murderer, is beyond the reach of divine compassion. Can you feel the comfort in this knowledge? A lifeline in a world that suddenly seems much harsher? As Cain wanders eastward, a new chapter in the human story unfolds. The simple life of Eden's earliest days gives way to something more complex. Families grow warier, communities more guarded. The need for rules and consequences becomes apparent as people grapple with the knowledge that one of their own could turn violent. But this primal tragedy also gives birth to new depths of human resilience. Picture the way Adam and Eve cling to each other, finding strength in shared grief. Imagine the conversations that must have taken place as people sought to understand and prevent such a tragedy from happening again. In facing this darkness, humanity discovers reservoirs of compassion and wisdom they never knew they possessed. The ripple effects of the first murder spread through creation in unexpected ways. Animals, once peacefully coexisting with humans, now sense a change in their caretakers. Some grow warier, while others draw closer, offering silent comfort to a species grappling with its own capacity for destruction. Can you picture a faithful dog, sensing its owner's distress, offering a comforting nuzzle? As generations pass, the story of Cain and Abel takes on mythic proportions. It becomes a foundational tale, shaping how people understand the nature of good and evil. Parents use it to teach their children about choices and consequences. Leaders reference it when crafting laws and systems of justice. The simple facts of what happened in that field become interwoven with deeper truths about human nature. How did this event change the course of human history? In ways both profound and subtle. It introduced the concept of murder, yes, but it also sparked the development of ethics and morality as we know them. The need to prevent such a tragedy from happening again led to the creation of the first laws, the earliest forms of justice systems. The exile of Cain led to the spread of humanity across wider territories. As he wandered, he would have encountered new landscapes, new challenges. Picture Cain, marked and alone, learning to survive in unfamiliar terrain. His journey, born of tragedy, became a reluctant exploration that paved the way for future migrations. This event also deepened humanity's spiritual understanding. The complex interplay of justice and mercy in God's response to Cain invited people to ponder the nature of the divine in new ways. It challenged simple notions of reward and punishment, introducing the idea of a God who could both judge and protect, even in the face of the gravest sin. As you rest there, contemplating this pivotal moment in human history, let its weight settle in your mind. The story of Cain and Abel marks the end of humanity's infancy and the beginning of a more complex existence. It's a tale of loss, yes, but also one of resilience, of the human spirit's capacity to find light even in the darkest moments. This new era, shaped by primal tragedy, sets the stage for all the triumphs and struggles that will follow in the grand narrative of human existence. Chapter 16. Echoes through time. Imagine the story of Cain and Abel as a pebble dropped in a pond. The ripples spread outward, touching shores far beyond that first tragic field. As you rest there, picturing those expanding circles, consider how this ancient tale has shaped our understanding of human nature for thousands of years. The story of two brothers, one act of violence, and its terrible consequences has become a powerful metaphor for the conflicts that plague humanity. In every generation, people have seen reflections of Cain and Abel in their own lives. The jealousy that festered in Cain's heart, the misguided attempt to win God's favor through violence. These themes resonate across cultures and centuries. Religious traditions have grappled with the implications of this story for as long as it's been told. Jewish scholars have debated the nature of Cain's sin and the meaning of his punishment. Christian thinkers have seen in Abel a prefiguration of Christ, the innocent victim. Muslim interpretations have emphasized the importance of repentance and God's mercy. Can you feel the weight of centuries of contemplation, as countless minds have turned over every detail of this brief but profound tale? The story raises questions that cut to the very heart of what it means to be human. It challenges us to consider the nature of free will and responsibility. Was Cain's act of murder an inevitability, given the fallen nature of humanity? Or was it a choice, one he could have resisted if he'd heeded God's warning? As you ponder these questions, imagine generations of philosophers and theologians wrestling with the same ideas, seeking to understand the delicate balance between divine sovereignty and human agency. Perhaps the most enduring power of the Cain and Abel story lies in its ability to serve as a mirror. When we look into this ancient tale, we see reflections of both the good and evil that dwell within our own hearts. It's a sobering reminder of the capacity for darkness that lurks even in those who seem most blessed. Yet it also highlights the potential for compassion, for the kind of selfless love Abel showed in his offerings to God. Can you picture a parent, centuries removed from that first fratricide, using the story to teach their child about the dangers of jealousy? Or a judge, weighing the fate of a modern-day Cain, reflecting on the complex interplay of justice and mercy shown in God's response? The narrative has taken on a life of its own, evolving and adapting to speak to each new generation's struggles and questions. What lessons can we learn from this tragic tale of brotherly conflict? The answers are as varied as the people who have pondered them, but some themes emerge again and again. We're reminded of the destructive power of unchecked jealousy and the importance of mastering our own emotions. The story teaches us about the far-reaching consequences of our actions, how a single moment of violence can forever alter the course of history. There's a lesson, too, about the nature of divine justice and mercy. Even in the face of the gravest sin, God's response to Cain shows a complex balance of punishment and protection. It challenges us to consider how we might extend that same mercy to those who have wronged us, breaking cycles of violence and retribution. As you let these thoughts settle in your mind, consider how the relevance of this story endures, speaking to the human condition across vast stretches of time. In a world still plagued by conflict, where brother still turns against brother, the tale of Cain and Abel remains painfully relevant. It reminds us of our shared humanity, our common struggles with temptation, and our capacity for both great good and terrible evil. The story continues to evolve, finding new interpretations in literature, art, and popular culture. From John Steinbeck's East of Eden to contemporary films exploring themes of sibling rivalry, the echoes of that first brotherly conflict resound through our creative expressions. Can you sense the power of this narrative, its ability to speak to something fundamental in the human experience? As night falls and you prepare for sleep, let the story of Cain and Abel rest gently in your thoughts. It's a tale that has comforted and challenged, warned and inspired countless generations before us. In its enduring relevance, we find a thread that connects us to our ancestors and to future generations yet unborn. All of us, in our own ways, grappling with the same fundamental questions of good and evil, choice and consequence, that Cain faced in that lonely field so long ago. Chapter 17. The Legacy of Choice. As the still of night settles around you, picture Cain standing at the crossroads of his fate. His decision in that moment, born of jealousy and rage, echoes through time as a testament to the incredible power of choice. Can you feel the weight of that decision, how it changed not just Cain's life, but the course of human history? Cain's story serves as a stark reminder that our actions ripple outward, touching lives far beyond our own. Imagine the consequences of that single violent act: a family torn apart, a brother lost, and a world forever changed. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? The choices we make, even in our darkest moments, can shape the world in ways we might never have imagined. As you rest there, let Cain's tale challenge you to look inward. What motivations drive your own choices? Are there seeds of jealousy or resentment taking root in your heart? The story of Cain and Abel calls us to examine ourselves with unflinching honesty. It's not always a comfortable process, but it's one that can lead to profound growth and understanding. This ancient narrative serves as a powerful call to action. It urges us to resist the pull of jealousy and instead cultivate compassion. Imagine how different the outcome might have been if Cain had chosen to celebrate Abel's success rather than resent it. Can you picture a world where we lift each other up instead of tearing each other down? The struggle between our better and worse natures is as old as humanity itself. Cain's story brings this internal battle into sharp focus. We all face moments of temptation, times when anger or jealousy threaten to overwhelm our better judgment. But Cain's tragic choice reminds us that we have the power to master these impulses, to choose a higher path. Yet even in the darkness of Cain's sin, a glimmer of hope shines through. God's response, a punishment tempered with protection, speaks to the possibility of redemption. It's a powerful reminder that no matter how far we may fall, the chance for a new beginning is never completely lost. Can you feel the comfort in that knowledge? The assurance that even our worst mistakes don't define us forever? The story of Cain and Abel continues to guide and warn us, thousands of years after it was first told. Its lessons resonate in courtrooms and classrooms, in places of worship and family homes. Picture a judge weighing a difficult case, drawing wisdom from this ancient tale of justice and mercy. Or imagine a child learning about the consequences of actions, their eyes wide as they hear of Cain's fateful choice. As you drift towards sleep, consider how the lessons of this story remain deeply relevant in our quest for a more just and peaceful world. It challenges us to confront the roots of conflict, to seek understanding instead of retaliation. The tale of two brothers reminds us that we are all connected, all part of the human family. What might change if we truly embrace that knowledge? Cain's legacy is complex, a cautionary tale, yes, but also a testament to the enduring nature of hope and the possibility of redemption. It invites us to reflect on our own choices, to consider how we might shape a better future through our actions. As you close your eyes, let these ancient truths settle in your heart. How might you carry the lessons of Cain and Abel into your own life, your own choices? In the quiet of night, ponder the power you hold to choose compassion over conflict, understanding over anger, and love over fear. As we close this ancient tale, let its wisdom settle in your heart like a gentle rain. Picture yourself standing at the crossroads of choice, much like Cain did so long ago. Can you feel the weight of responsibility, the power to shape not just your own life, but the world around you? The story of Cain and Abel reminds us of our shared humanity, our capacity for both great love and terrible darkness. As you rest there, contemplating their fateful choices, consider how their struggles mirror our own. How often do we face the temptation of jealousy, the pull of anger? Yet in those moments, we also hold the power to choose differently. May this timeless narrative inspire us to cultivate love in our hearts, to resist the siren call of hatred. Imagine a world where we celebrate each other's successes rather than resenting them, where we face our darker impulses with courage and compassion. As you drift towards sleep, let these thoughts guide you towards a brighter tomorrow, one choice at a time. That brings us to the end of the story of Cain and Abel. Before you go, please do like this video and subscribe to our channel to help us grow the Word of God. I wish you a peaceful and blessed sleep, and I'll see you soon. God bless you.